The world knew this estate existed. The world never knew what was inside it. For decades, it kept its doors shut, its secrets buried, its guests quiet. Then a Qatari royal paid $400 million and took the keys. And what is waiting inside will shock you. The $400 million deal. For almost 40 years, one estate on the Italian island of Sardinia kept the secrets of presidents, prime ministers, and one of the most powerful men Europe ever produced. Behind its gates sat a hidden world, a volcano that erupted on command, a secret tunnel that ran straight in from the sea, a bunker built to survive the unthinkable, and now for around $400 million, a member of the Qatari royal family has quietly bought every last inch of it. Let's get into the deep story of the Sardinian villa. Let me set the scene for you, because the timing here matters. The sale was confirmed on or around June 24, 2026, by Fininvest, the Berlusconi family holding company, which accepted a binding offer from a buyer working through a vehicle based in Luxembourg. The company that legally controlled the estate, Immobiliari Idra, part of the same Fininvest group, came out and said the quiet part loud. It had accepted a binding offer from a foreign entity for the sale of Villa Certosa. With those few careful words, an era ended. So who is the foreign entity? Here is where the story gets interesting, and here is the name you came for. The buyer is Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani, often shortened simply to HBJ, who served as Qatar's former prime minister and foreign minister. He did not sign the papers under his own name on a public document. Instead, the purchase ran through Constellation Hotels Holding, a company registered in Luxembourg that acts as the real estate and investment arm of the Al Thani family across Europe and the wider world. Stay with me on that detail because it tells you a lot about how the truly wealthy move money without anyone watching. Now, let me give you the number that put this estate in the history books. The agreed price sat at roughly 350 million euros, which works out to somewhere around 395 to 400 million United States dollars. Read that again slowly. $400 million for a single seafront compound. That is not a typo, and it is not hype. That is the real figure that turned this quiet Italian sale into a global headline overnight. To understand why this is such a big moment, you have to understand who owned it before. The estate belonged to Silvio Berlusconi, who purchased the property back in the 1980s and turned it into his primary summer residence and his unofficial political and entertainment hub. For decades, this was where the most famous and most controversial Italian of his generation hosted the world. So when his family finally let it go, it was never going to be a normal transaction. It was the closing of a chapter that had defined Italian power, scandal, and excess for a generation. It begins with an ending. Silvio Berlusconi died in June of 2023. That single event set everything else in motion, because a property like this does not simply pass quietly to the next generation. It becomes a question, a very expensive, very public question. By January of 2024, his 5 heirs had made their decision, and the estate was placed on the market at an eye-watering 500 million euros. Think about that opening ask for a second. €500 million, simply to start the conversation. That was the number the family hung on the door, daring the richest people on earth to step forward. A few years earlier, for tax and inheritance purposes, a technical appraisal in 2021 valued the estate at around 259 million euros. That figure was widely seen as conservative, a cautious number on paper that came nowhere near what the open market might actually pay. So you had a cautious valuation on one side and a dream price on the other, and the truth, as it always does, landed somewhere in between. Through the middle of 2025, the property was actively marketed to the only kind of people who could even dream of affording it. And I want you to picture what that marketing actually looks like, because it is nothing like a normal sale. There are no signs on the lawn, there is no listing your neighbor can scroll past. A property like this is whispered about in private rooms, shown only to a tiny handful of vetted names with the means to wire hundreds of millions of dollars. The serious money began to circle quietly. By around August of 2025, the first real bids started coming in. And then, roughly a year later, came that quiet confirmation in June of 2026 that the deal was finally done. Over the years, the estate drew interest from a long line of the world's wealthiest names. Reports mention earlier approaches and curiosity from the Sultan of Brunei, from various Arab billionaires, and from international hotel groups, along with whispers of Spanish, Russian, Chinese, and Saudi buyers over time. Picture that for a moment. A line of kings, sheikhs, and tycoons all wanting the same prize, and only one of them walking away with the keys. So why did the Al Thani family win in the end? Part of the answer is that they were already there. The family was not a stranger to this corner of the Mediterranean. They already held significant interests in Sardinia, including luxury tourism assets and the Mater Olbia Hospital, which is connected to the Qatar Foundation. This was not a wild leap into unknown territory. It was the next logical move for a family that has been quietly building a footprint in the region for years. Think about how rare that footprint really is. Most billionaires buy a single trophy and plant a flag. This family had already woven itself into the fabric of the island, into its tourism, into its healthcare, long before this estate ever came up for sale. So when the most famous property on the entire coast finally hit the market, they were not outsiders trying to buy their way in. They were neighbors with deep pockets and a long memory, perfectly placed to make the winning move. Some early reports got a little tangled on the exact name of the buyer, with a few outlets slightly varying it before the detailed and consistent sourcing pointed firmly to HBJ Al Thani. That kind of confusion is normal when a story this big breaks fast. Reporters race to be first, names blur, and the truth takes a day or two to fully settle. But once the dust settled, the picture was clear, and the man at the center of it is one of the most fascinating power brokers alive. Because here is the thing. The man who just bought this estate is not some anonymous billionaire. He is the kind of figure who earned a nickname that sounds made up. They call him the man who bought London. And we will get into exactly why later, because his shopping list reads like a fantasy. For now, just sit with the scale of what has happened. A binding offer accepted, around $400 million. Agreed, one of the most notorious private estates in Europe, sold. The Berlusconi era at Villa Certosa is over, and the Al Thani era is beginning. But none of that, not the price, not the buyer, not the Luxembourg company, is the real reason the world cannot stop talking about this place. The real reason is hidden underground, behind a wall of secrecy that took a determined photographer years to crack. What sits beneath this villa turned it into a legend, inside the secret estate. First, let me ground you in where this place actually sits, because the location alone is worth a fortune. Villa Certosa rests in Porto Rotondo, near the town of Olbia, looking out over the Gulf of Marinella on Sardinia's exclusive Costa Smeralda coastline. The Costa Smeralda is one of the most prestigious stretches of coast in the entire Mediterranean, a playground of crystal water, granite rocks, and the kind of villas that ordinary people only ever see from a boat. This is the postcard that the very rich keep for themselves. The estate covers roughly 120 hectares, which is about 300 acres, and in detailed descriptions, it stretches beyond 580,000 square meters, making it larger than Vatican City. Let that land. The grounds of this single private home are bigger than an entire country. You could get lost on the lawn. You could walk for 10 minutes in one direction and still be on the same man's property. Most of us measure our homes in rooms. This place is measured against nations, and the setting itself does half the work. The estate sits on sloping hilly terrain that descends toward the sea, with terraced levels and a panoramic orientation toward the water, blending untamed Mediterranean bush with extensive manicured gardens. It enjoys direct seafront access with private paths, piers, and coastline frontage among the famous Costa Smeralda granite rocks and crystal clear water. So before you even reach the buildings, you have wild coast, sculpted gardens, and uninterrupted views of the sea. That is the canvas. Now picture what got painted onto it. The main villa itself is no small thing either. It measures around 4,500 square meters, which is roughly 48,000 square feet, with a reported total of 126 rooms spread across the main house and the outbuildings. Some descriptions narrow that down to a core Mediterranean-style residence with around 28 bedrooms and 35 bathrooms in the primary house alone, with the higher room count coming from guest facilities and support buildings. 35 bathrooms in one home. I will let you do the math on that one, but this estate was not built all at once, and that is part of what makes it special. It grew slowly over decades, like a personal vision that simply refused to stop expanding. It started life under a different name entirely. It was originally known as Villa Monastero before Berlusconi acquired it in the late 1980s and renamed it Villa Certosa. From there, the transformation began, and it never really ended. The man trusted to shape this dream was an architect named Gianni Gamondi. He was Berlusconi's trusted architect and a specialist in the villas of the Costa Smeralda, and he handled both the main villa and the surrounding park that ran past 100 hectares. The two men worked together for roughly 25 years on various projects, and the pace was relentless. There is one anecdote that sums up the whole mad energy of the place. A swimming pool was reportedly taken from drawings to its very first swim in just 19 days. 19 days. Most people wait longer than that for a plumber to call back. So what did all those years and all that money actually build? Let me walk you through the grounds. The estate holds up to 7 outdoor swimming pools, an amphitheater, a helipad, sports facilities, guest villas and cottages, extensive gardens and parkland, private piers, and direct access to the sea, all wrapped in advanced security systems built to support large-scale entertaining. 7 pools, an amphitheater, a helipad in the back garden, and honestly, that is the normal part. That is the part they were happy to show you. Now we get to the secret, the single feature that turned this estate from a luxury home into a global legend. Beneath the villa, hidden from the world for years, sits something that sounds like it was ripped straight out of a spy film. It is a secret underground grotto, a sea cave and tunnel system that critics and reporters have compared to a James Bond-style lair. And once you hear how it works, you will understand why the world lost its mind over it. Inside, the design leaned all the way into fantasy. The chambers glowed with garish purple and turquoise lighting, with colored lights set into the floor and dramatic water features throughout. And as the centerpiece, set into the floor of one of the pools, sat a large mosaic of Neptune, the Roman god of the sea, from this underground world. A lift carried guests up into the main villa above. Read that back and tell me it does not sound like the headquarters of a movie villain. A sea cave, mood lighting, a god on the floor, a secret elevator. It is almost too perfect. Here's the question everyone asked. Why would anyone build such a thing? The widely believed answer is twofold. It was designed for the discreet arrival of high-profile or party guests, and it was also built with a possible emergency escape route in mind. In fact, Berlusconi himself had hinted at the idea years earlier. As far back as 2004, he spoke of an underwater escape route at the estate. At the time, people thought he was joking. He was not. So how did this hidden world ever get out? For a long time, it stayed exactly that. Hidden, rumored, whispered about, but never proven. Then, in September of 2012, the first detailed photographs were published by a photographer named Antonello Zappadou, and the images caused an instant media storm. Suddenly, the rumors had pictures. The lair was real, and the world could finally see what had been buried beneath the Sardinian coast all along. There is one more layer to this, and it connects the fantasy to real government power. On the 6th of May, 2004, the Italian government issued a decree designating Villa Certosa as an alternative seat of maximum security for the Prime Minister. That official status was later used to help justify and approve the extraordinary construction, including the secret sea tunnel, with Italy's intelligence chief reportedly stepping in on security grounds. So the spy movie tunnel was not just a rich man's toy. On paper, it was a matter of national security. And if a secret sea cave was not enough, the estate had a party trick that almost ended in disaster. Somewhere on the grounds, built on an artificial hill, sat a mock volcano designed to erupt on command, complete with simulated lava and dramatic effects, built purely for the spectacle of entertaining guests. A fake volcano for parties. That is a sentence I never thought I would say. And yes, it caused exactly the kind of chaos you're imagining. In a now infamous incident in 2006, neighbors saw what looked like lava and smoke and called the fire brigade, convinced a real eruption or a real fire was underway before anyone realized it was a staged show. Imagine being a firefighter who races to the scene of a volcanic eruption only to discover it is a billionaire's dinner party. That is the energy this place ran on. Underneath all of that theatrical madness sat something far more serious. The recent sale marketing materials describe a nuclear-grade underground bunker on the property, a feature that ties right back to that 2004 security decree, which would have justified the hardened, high-security construction beneath the estate. A volcano above ground for fun and a bunker below ground for the end of the world. That is the kind of place this is. But the legend of Villa Certosa was never only about its features, it was about who walked through its gates. This estate was less a holiday home and more a summer court, a place where the powerful came to be entertained. Among its guests were Vladimir Putin, who visited multiple times, including buggy tours of the grounds with photos existing from 2008, along with Tony Blair and his wife Cherie, who vacationed there. World leaders, riding around the gardens in golf buggies. That was an ordinary weekend here. And then there is the chapter the estate is most infamous for. This is where the glamour curdles into scandal. Villa Certosa became globally notorious for the so-called bunga bunga parties, lavish gatherings that fed into major legal scandals during Berlusconi's final term as Prime Minister, in which he was ultimately acquitted in the related underage prostitution case, though an associate was convicted. The parties here were not just gossip. They reached all the way into the courts and shook Italian politics to its core. One incident in particular captured the world's attention. Back in 2009, published photographs showed a nude former Czech Prime Minister by one of the pools, and the images became an international embarrassment. This was the reputation Villa Certosa Sentosa carried for years, a place of presidents and pools, of secrets and scandals, of power and excess all tangled together behind one set of gates. So that is what the Qatari royal family just bought, not a house. A legend with a volcano, a secret sea cave, a doomsday bunker, and a guest list that reads like a history book. The only question left is the biggest one of all. Who is the man stepping into this strange and storied kingdom, and what on earth does he plan to do with it next? The man behind this all and what happens next. His name is Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani, and across the financial world he is known simply as HBJ. He was born on the 30th of August, 1959 in Doha, and he is a senior, deeply influential member of Qatar's ruling Al Thani family. This is not a minor royal with a famous surname and little else. This is one of the chief architects of modern Qatar, a man who helped steer an entire nation onto the world stage. His record in government alone is staggering. He served as Qatar's foreign minister from 1992 to 2013, and as its prime minister from 2007 to 2013. For more than 2 decades, he sat at the heart of Qatari power. He was a key architect of the country's modern foreign policy, mediating numerous international conflicts and building strong ties, especially with the United States. While the world watched the headlines, he was often the one working quietly behind the scenes, brokering deals and steering events. And that word, mediating, tells you a lot about how this man operates. He is not the type to slam his fist on a table or shout across a room. His reputation is built on the opposite instinct. He is described as pragmatic and results-oriented, known for strategic mediation rather than confrontation, the kind of figure who solves a problem in a private room and lets others take the credit on stage. Keep that personality in mind, because it is the exact opposite of the man who owned this villa before him. And that contrast is the heart of this whole story. But it is his private fortune that truly turns heads, and this is where that strange nickname finally makes sense. HBJ is so active in global real estate that he earned the title "the man who bought London." And the nickname is not an exaggeration. His name is attached to some of the most famous real estate in the British capital, with connections to the One Hyde Park development, the Connaught Hotel, and the world of Harrods. When people say he bought London, they are barely joking. Stop and think about what it takes to earn a nickname like that. Not a street, not a building, a city. That is the level of player we are dealing with here. His holdings stretch far beyond bricks and streets. He controls a significant stake in Deutsche Bank, held through a company called Paramount Services Holdings, which stands as his largest public holding, along with past high-profile moves into companies like Heritage Oil and the Spanish retailer El Corte Inglés. He is also a serious art collector, a man who once bought a Picasso for a record price. Banks, oil, retail, fine art, and prime property across continents. This is the portfolio of a man for whom a Sardinian palace is simply the latest acquisition. If you want a single object that captures his world, look no further than his yacht. HBJ owns the super yacht Al Mirkab, a vessel measuring 133 meters, or 436 feet, built in Germany in 2008. It was designed by Tim Haywood, with interiors by Andrew Winch, and it carries an estimated value of around $300 million. It can host dozens of guests and features one of the largest spas ever fitted on a yacht, a $300 million boat. And that is just how he gets around on the water. That very yacht, the Al Mirkab, was recently spotted in Sardinia, around the Olbia area, which is striking given the timing of this new villa purchase. Picture it, a $300 million super yacht drifting in the same waters as a $400 million estate, both belonging to the same man. The pieces of his Mediterranean world are quietly clicking into place. A yacht to arrive on, an estate to land at, and a hidden sea tunnel, if you remember part 2, built precisely so a boat can slip straight inside. Suddenly, all those strange features start to look less like a previous owner's fantasy and more like a perfect fit for the next one. For all his wealth, he is described as a shrewd, pragmatic, and discreet figure rather than a flashy public personality, someone who avoids the more controversial behavior associated with some other royals. In private life, following the traditions of his family, he is married to 2 wives and reliable sourcing lists, 5 children, 4 sons and 1 daughter, though broader profiles sometimes cite more across his marriages. His primary base remains Doha, Qatar, where the family maintains palaces and properties worldwide, and his lifestyle has long included significant travel, with a Boeing 747 private jet noted in his past. A private jumbo jet, a $300 million yacht, palaces around the world, and now this. The collection keeps growing. His character, by many accounts, was shaped long before the billions. His father, Sheikh Jassim bin Jaber Al Thani, was described as charitable, ethical, cultured, and socially responsible, respected qualities said to have shaped HBJ's own emphasis on contribution alongside wealth. That emphasis shows up in his philanthropy. He is strongly tied to the Jassim and Hamad bin Jassim Charitable Foundation, which focuses on health, education, community empowerment, and humanitarian causes, and runs on a self-sustaining model funded by real estate and financial assets. So the same man who buys banks and Picassos also funds hospitals and schools. He is a study in contrasts, a power broker with a charitable streak, a billionaire who would rather be useful than famous. And that brings us to the whole reason this purchase makes sense. The Al Thani family does not buy on impulse. The broader dynasty is extremely wealthy from Qatar's natural gas resources, with extensive global holdings in real estate, investment, and hospitality. Villa Certosa fits a clear pattern. It is another iconic, high-value asset added to a collection that already spans the globe. For a family like this, a famous estate is not just a home, it is a statement. It says, we were here, we can afford the best of what the world has to offer, and we intend to keep it for generations. So the obvious question is, what happens to Villa Certosa now? What does a discreet Qatari power broker do with a volcano, a secret grotto, and a bunga reputation? For now, the family has made no public announcement about exactly which members will live there or use it full-time. The most likely outcome, at least at first, is that it becomes a prestigious European base, a place for HBJ, his family, and extended Al Thani relatives to use for private stays, for quiet summers, and for the kind of discreet entertaining that suits a man who prefers to stay out of the spotlight. But there is a more intriguing possibility on the table, and the Italian press has already seized on it. There is speculation in Italian media that the estate could be converted toward ultra-luxury hospitality use, in other words, turned into an exclusive hotel or resort. And remember, that idea fits the family's existing footprint perfectly, given their established interests in Sardinia through luxury tourism and the Mater Olbia Hospital. The party palace of one era could become the premium destination of the next. Whatever they choose, one thing is certain. A door has closed on a very specific slice of history. For decades, Villa Certosa was Berlusconi's stage, the backdrop for presidents and scandals, for volcanoes and secret tunnels, for the strange theater of one man's enormous appetite for power and spectacle. That chapter is finished. The summer court has a new owner, and he could not be more different from the last, where Berlusconi was loud, theatrical, and impossible to ignore. HBJ is quiet, strategic, and almost invisible. The same gates now guard a completely different kind of king, and so a legend changes hands. A volcano that once erupted for laughing guests goes silent. A secret sea cave that once welcomed the world's powerful in the dark waits for whatever comes next. A man who is said to have bought London now owns one of the most storied estates in all of Italy. The price was around $400 million, but the real value, the history, the secrets, the sheer myth of the place is something no appraisal could ever capture. If a moment in this story made your jaw drop, tell me which one down in the comments, because I want to know what stuck with you the most. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, you already know what to do, so I will see you in the next one.